Okay, so when you think of July 4th, what truly comes to mind? I mean, right away.
Well, for most people, probably fireworks.
Yeah.
That big boom and flash in the sky.
Yeah, fireworks,
Yeah,
definitely. Or the sizzle of a barbecue, maybe. That smell.
absolutely. Barbecues, maybe parades too. The whole red, white, and blue everywhere.
Right, the streamers, the marching bands, maybe a little off-key sometimes. It's that classic image, isn't it? A day off work, a big party, just quintessential Americana.
It is. That's the picture we mostly hold.
But, okay, let's unpack this. What if I told you the story of Independence Day, this holiday that feels so straightforward, is actually far richer, stranger, and way more complex than just a day off?
Interesting. So not just the simple barbecue and fireworks narrative.
Not at all. It's like this evolving tapestry, right?
Yeah.
Woven with defiance, hope, deep contradictions,
hmm
and sometimes just really wild celebration.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So today, that's our deep dive. We're looking into the actual evolution of Independence Day. Where did it really start? How did people celebrate it in, say, the 1870s versus the 1770s? And what did it mean to different people at different times?
And you mentioned contradictions, which sounds really key.
Definitely. And to do this, we're digging into some amazing historical documents, personal stories, things preserved in the Library of Congress archives, real first-hand accounts.
Fantastic. Actual voices from the past.
Exactly. So our mission basically is to piece together how this solemn declaration, this revolutionary act, turned into this huge nationwide festival over centuries, how it reflected the changing heart of the nation.
That sounds like a great journey. Where do we start with the Declaration itself?
Let's start right there, the core event.
Okay, so July 4th, 1776, that's the anchor date, right?
Mm.
The Second Continental Congress unanimously adopts the Declaration of Independence.
Unanimous. That word itself is powerful.
It really is. And this wasn't just, ticking a box. It was a massive, incredibly bold statement announcing separation from Great Britain, period.
Irreversible. No going back.
Exactly. And while, sure, the Constitution comes later and sets up the government framework, the legal nuts and bolts,
Which is obviously crucial.
undeniably. But you could argue that the Declaration, especially that phrase, all men are created equal, holds this incredibly powerful, almost emotional place for Americans, maybe even more beloved than the Constitution in some ways.
That phrase, it echoes, doesn't it, even now?
It absolutely does. What's fascinating here is how quickly this foundational document became more than just law. It became a symbol, something woven right into everyday life, into the American identity.
So not just a dusty document in an archive.
Not at all. It was a break from the old ways, yes, but also this really poetic statement of new ideals, revolutionary ideas really for the time, liberty, equality.
Ideas that would challenge the world and challenge America itself for centuries.
Precisely. It set a philosophical stage. It offered this vision of what a free and equal society should be. Even if getting there, well, that's the ongoing story, isn't it?
Still working on it.
Still working on it. But the Declaration gave the young nation, a soul, a guiding star, even if that star seemed really distant sometimes.
So it sets the stage, but the celebration itself, you think it just burst into being. Like July 5th, 1776, everyone's having a massive party.
It's easy to imagine that, right? Like flipping a switch.
Yeah, you picture fireworks going off immediately. But that's not quite how it went down, is it? Here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't an instant nationwide party. Not even close.
So how did the first anniversary go? 1777.
Well, we actually know a fair bit about it thanks to John Adams. He wrote a letter to his daughter, Abigail, describing the celebration in Philadelphia. And the key word seems to be spontaneous.
Ah, so not officially mandated or organized from the top down.
Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like people just decided to mark the occasion. Adams described the city being illuminated. 13 bonfires, one for each colony. 13 candles in every house window.
Wow, that's quite a visual. 13 points of light everywhere.
Isn't it? And he mentions bells ringing, cannons roaring, which, remember, the war is still very much raging at this point.
Right, this isn't peacetime. This is celebrating in the middle of a fight for survival.
Exactly. And fireworks. He said they were played off with great ingenuity and success. So even then, fireworks were part of it.
Ingenuity and success. I like that. So a mix of joy, defiance, maybe relief.
I think so. That raw excitement, this new fragile identity being celebrated organically. It's such a contrast to the big, organized, almost ritualistic holiday it becomes later.
That spontaneity is really telling. Born from the people, not decreed from above.
Yeah, it feels very grassroots. Which leads to the next point. When did it actually become widespread? When did everyone start doing it?
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, observing Independence Day only really became commonplace, like a nationwide tradition, after the War of 1812.
Ah, the Second War of Independence. Interesting. Why then?
Well, that war did something crucial. It really solidified American identity. It fostered this sense of national pride, maybe even more intensely than the revolution itself had managed, oddly enough.
How so?
It was about the U.S. asserting itself on the world stage, proving its sovereignty, forging this collective consciousness that was distinctly American, not British.
Okay, so a confidence boost, nationally speaking.
A huge one. And the 4th of July became a tangible expression of that, a way to celebrate that solidified identity.
So the holiday's meaning shifts or deepens after 1812.
Absolutely. And you see proof of this in how they started scheduling things. Think about major nation-building projects, huge infrastructure milestones,
Like what?
like the groundbreaking for the Erie Canal in 1817, a massive undertaking set to change everything for trade and expansion.
Wow, okay. That's a big deal.
Or the start of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in 1828, the dawn of the railway age in America.
And they intentionally started these on July 4th.
Yes, it wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate chase.
Yeah.
By tying these symbols of progress, American ingenuity, the future, by tying them directly to Independence Day, they elevated the holiday.
So it wasn't just looking back at 1776 anymore.
Exactly. It became woven into the story of national progress, ambition, unity, linking the revolutionary past with the aspirational future.
Whereas scheduling, it really suggests the holiday was becoming this powerful, unifying force, didn't it?
It really does. It shows a sophisticated understanding of its symbolic power, making it a cornerstone not just of memory, but of ongoing national endeavor, a day to recommit to building the nation.
So what does this all mean for us looking back? It means the core ideas, those declaration principles, liberty, equality, self-rule, they were always there in the text.
Right, the words were there from the start.
But the celebration, the nationwide party aspect,
Yeah,
that took time. It needed that post-1812 moment to really catch fire across the country.
the public embrace took a while to fully bloom.
And the document itself, the Declaration's text, it remained vital. People kept printing it, reading it.
That continued access is so important. You mentioned resources like that 1823 printing Unanimous Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, and later editions, too. It wasn't locked away.
And that access was crucial. It meant more people could actually read those words, all men are created equal, for themselves. They could engage directly with the principles, think about what they meant in their own lives.
Making it a living document, not just a historical artifact.
Precisely. It wasn't just for the elite or for lawyers. It was meant for everyone. And understanding its creation, that adds another layer.
You mean the drafting process?
Yeah, the historical sources show this incredible intellectual energy behind it. Timelines leading up to 76, showing the debates. We even have fragments of early drafts, Jefferson's rough draft, for example.
Oh, wow. What can we see in those?
You can see how they agonized over phrasing. Like, apparently an early version said, sacred and undeniable truths,
And they changed it.
to self-evident truths. More direct, more powerful. It shows it wasn't just a flash of inspiration. It was hard, collaborative work.
Like hammering out the exact right words.
Exactly. And things like the Journals of the Continental Congress or the Letters of Delegates, they give you this amazing window into the debates, the compromises, the whole legislative effort that led to that unanimous vote.
So the Declaration was a product of intense deliberation, not just one guy's idea.
Absolutely. A collective effort fueled by this yearning for something new. And its constant reprinting, its use in schools, it shows its foundational role, always inviting new generations to grapple with its promises.
Which brings us to a really crucial and often difficult part of the story, the mid-19th century.
Right, a period where the holiday's prominence is growing, but so is the glaring contradiction of slavery.
Exactly. Independence Day is becoming this big national celebration of freedom while millions are enslaved. The hypocrisy is just stark.
Painfully stark?
And right in the middle of this, we find this incredible moment, a truly powerful act of protest and hope. We need to talk about the Banneker Institute of Philadelphia in 1859.
Ah, yes. This is a pivotal story.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. This wasn't just African Americans deciding to have a 4th of July party. It was a deliberate, charged act. They urged African Americans to celebrate, yes, but to do it while pointing out the massive gap between the Declaration's ideals, all men are created equal, and the brutal reality of slavery.
Using the celebration itself as a form of critique, a form of witness.
Precisely. Imagine the courage that took. appropriating the nation's birthday celebration to highlight its deepest failing. It was radical, reclaiming the narrative, demanding those promises apply to them.
It's incredibly powerful. And there was a specific call to action, wasn't there? A statement.
Yes, from Mr. Jacob C. White Jr., the chairman of the meeting. His words are just. They resonate so strongly. Can I read a bit of it?
Please do.
He said, "We have learned by experience and by the comparison of ourselves with people similarly situated to hope that at some day, not very far in futurity, our grievances will be redressed, that our long-lost rights will be restored to us.
The hope is palpable there.
And that, in the full stature of men, we will stand up and with our once cruel opponents and oppressors rejoice in the declaration of our common country and hail with them the approach of the glorious natal day of the great republic.
Wow. In the full stature of men.
Our common country. That is a profound statement of faith and challenge.
Isn't it? It's hope, yes, but it's also a direct challenge to the nation's conscience. It's claiming ownership of the holiday's promise, even while being denied its reality. It forces us to see how complex this holiday's history really is.
It absolutely does, and that raises such an important question. What does it mean for a holiday celebrating freedom to be co-opted, used by those denied that very freedom?
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
A deep one. For the Banneker Institute, July 4th had this painful duality. On one hand, it's the symbol of the ideal of freedom, the promise. On the other, it's this agonizing reminder of freedom denied.
Highlighting that massive gap between words and reality.
Exactly. Their act shows that these foundational documents, like the Declaration, they aren't static. Their meaning evolves. It gets contested. People reinterpret them based on their lived experience.
So the Banneker Institute wasn't just criticizing, they were actively reinterpreting the Declaration's promise.
Yes. They were asserting that liberty must include everyone, that their struggle wasn't separate from the American story, but absolutely central to it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows how a holiday's meaning is constantly shaped by different groups.
Their experiences, celebration, protest, mourning, all redefine what the holiday means.
Precisely. It becomes this dynamic symbol reflecting the nation's often messy journey towards its own ideals. It keeps forcing the question, whose freedom are we really celebrating? And is that promise truly for all? Which leads us into the later 19th century, because by then, the 4th is undeniably a huge deal nationwide.
Right. It's really cemented its place. By the 1870s, it's arguably the most important secular holiday on the calendar.
Bigger than Christmas in some ways, at least in terms of public celebration.
Seems like it, based on some accounts. It transcended regions, class. It brought people together.
And it got official recognition, too.
Yes. Congress passed a law making Independence Day a federal holiday on June 28, 1870, that solidified its status, from custom to official national event.
And it wasn't just in the big cities or the established East Coast.
No, what's remarkable is how widespread it was. Even as the records say, far-flung communities on the western frontier made a point of celebrating. People traveling miles, gathering in clearings. It was deeply embedded.
A vital part of community life, even out on the frontier.
Absolutely. A marker of identity, of belonging to this larger nation, even when you're physically isolated.
And the celebrations themselves, they weren't just solemn commemorations, were they?
Oh, not at all. What's striking is this incredible blend of patriotism, yes, but also really open political commentary and just pure community fun, raw entertainment.
We have some firsthand accounts of this, right?
Good, you do. There's an amazing interview from 1938 with a Miss Nettie Spencer, recalling her childhood in rural Oregon back in the 1870s. It paints such a vivid picture.
What did she remember?
She called the 4th the big event of the year. And get this, she said, everyone in the countryside got together on that day for the only time in the year.
The only time. Wow, that makes it incredibly important socially.
Hugely important. The glue holding the community together. She described the morning floats. The one that always got the girl's eye was the goddess of liberty.
Ah, the classic symbol.
Right. And apparently the girl chosen was supposed to be the most wholesome and prettiest girl in the countryside. But Miss Spencer adds, with a bit of charming honesty, if she wasn't, she had friends who thought she was. But the rest of us weren't always in agreement on that.
Huh. That sounds about right for small-town dynamic, a real human element there.
Totally. Then there were cadets from the Oregon Agricultural College marching, a band playing, but also, significantly, political effigies.
Effigies? Like mocking politicians.
Exactly. Grotesque figures representing unpopular people or issues paraded publicly.
Yeah.
It shows how political commentary, even satire, was just baked into the celebration.
A very public airing of opinions.
Definitely. Then came the speeches before lunch. Always followed one pattern, she said.
What was the pattern?
First, a fiery challenge to England,
Right.
berating the king, calling him a skunk. This was the famous twisting the lion's tail.
Still defining themselves against the old colonial power, even then.
Yep. A ritualistic affirmation of independence. The second theme was this big invitation, that anyone could find freedom and liberty on our shores, inviting the heavy-laden in other lands to come to us and find peace.
The American asylum message. Still powerful.
Very powerful, and these speeches were pretty fiery. So fiery, in fact, that she remembered by that time the men who drank got into fights and called each other Englishmen.
Oh, wow. So things could get heated, literally and figuratively.
Apparently so. It captures that boisterous, maybe slightly rowdy atmosphere. In the afternoon, things got lighter with the plug uglies.
Plug uglies. What were they?
Funny floats and clowns who took off on the political subjects of the day. So, more satire, more comedy, a counterpoint to the morning's seriousness.
Live political sketch comedy, basically.
Kind of. And her conclusion really sums it up. The 4th was the day of the year that really counted then. Christmas wasn't much, a church tree or something, but no one twisted the lion's tail.
That says it all, doesn't it? The 4th was the day. A mix of patriotism, politics, community, and just letting loose.
Raw, participatory, and absolutely central to their year.
Now that's Oregon. Did things look different elsewhere, say down south?
Oh, absolutely. Similar core elements, but a very different flavor. We have another incredible recollection, also from a 1938 interview, this time with Dr. Samuel B. Lathan, who was 96 then, remembering his South Carolina childhood in the late 19th century.
96. Amazing recall, I bet. What did he describe?
He talked about the celebration at Caldwell Crossroads. It was a big military affair. Infantry companies from different counties would assemble, form a brigade. There were drills, inspections, a dress parade. A real show of local militia strength and pride.
So more martial, less satirical than in Oregon.
Seems that way. More focus on military display. And here's a fantastic detail. They had an old cannon mounted on the field.
A real cannon.
Yes, and the guy who got to fire it was named Hugh Reed. Now get this, Reed was an artillery veteran from Napoleon's army. He fought at Waterloo.
No way. A Napoleonic veteran firing the cannon at a 4th of July celebration in South Carolina? That's incredible.
Isn't it? The direct link to epic European history right there. After the military show, there was a great barbecue and picnic dinner, communal feasting again.
Food is always central, it seems.
Always. And speeches, too. Candidates for office would speak. So like in Oregon, it was a political hub, a place to campaign and debate.
Was there also refreshment involved?
Dr. Layson put it plainly. Hard liquor would flow. So yes, fueling the festivities, no doubt.
And this led to...
Well, perhaps the most unique feature. The Bully of the Woods contest.
Bully of the Woods, what on earth is that?
Basically, primitive prize fighting. Each local area or county put forward its champion. A test of strength and local pride.
Wow. So actual fighting.
Yes, but apparently with rules, Dr. Lathan specified. Butting, biting, eye gouging, kicking, and blows below the belt were barred.
Okay, so regulated brawling, that is definitely a different flavor from the plug uglies.
Very different. A raw, physical display of masculinity and local rivalry, but still within some bounds of fairness. It shows just how varied these celebrations could be while still sharing those core elements. Community, speeches, food, releasing energy.
That comparison is fascinating. It leads to that question you raised earlier.
Right. How did these very different regional customs actually build a national identity instead of just highlighting differences?
Yeah, because Oregon's goddess of liberty and political clown seem worlds away from South Carolina's Napoleonic cannon veteran and regulated fistfights.
They do. But look at the common threads. Community gathering is universal. Speeches are universal, political, patriotic, aspirational. Food and drink bringing people together universal. Merriment and letting off steam, whether through satire or fighting universal.
So the core functions were similar, even if the specific expressions were really different.
Exactly. The goddess of liberty float represents maybe a more idealized symbolic patriotism. The military drills and the veteran firing the cannon connect to a more martial tradition, perhaps a sense of duty in history.
And the plug uglies versus the bully of the woods.
Different ways of dealing with social energy, maybe. One uses humor and critique, the other uses physical contest and prowess. Both are forms of public performance and community engagement, just expressed through different cultural lenses.
So these variations didn't weaken the national holiday, they actually enriched it.
I think so. They show that national identity wasn't about forcing everyone into the same mold. It was being forged through shared experiences, even if those experiences were locally colored. It allowed different regions to celebrate their shared heritage in ways that felt authentic to them.
A flexible national narrative.
Exactly. That diversity became part of the strength. And you can find even more examples if you dig into collections of regional history and folklore, like accounts from settlers in the Midwest describing their own Fourth traditions.
It really paints a picture of a holiday constantly being shaped to the people celebrating it, which makes me think about how it looks,
Mhm.
the visual side of it.
Oh, definitely. The visual evolution tells its own story, too.
Yeah, I mean, think about the shift from maybe those early, quite simple gatherings Adams described to, well, what we see now.
It's a huge transformation. Imagine going from, say, old sepia photos of turn-of-the-century town parades, horse-drawn floats, kids in homemade outfits,
Right, very local, very handcrafted.
to the kind of massive high-tech fireworks displays we see over national monuments today, like those incredible shows over Washington, D.C.
Totally choreographed, cutting-edge pyrotechnics lighting up the Capitol. It's a spectacle on a completely different scale.
It is. And you see symbols changing, too. An 1876 flag, marking the centennial that's about national maturity, looking back proudly on the first 100 years.
Then you jump forward and see, like, that parade photo from Nome, Alaska in 1915.
Exactly. It shows the holiday reaching the absolute fringes of the country, taking on a local Alaskan flavor, but still recognizably the Fourth, universal adoption.
Or that picture of the little boy on a float in Vail, Oregon, 1941, right before the U.S. enters World War II. There's an innocence there, but also this sense of ongoing tradition, even through hard times like the Depression.
And then you have images that take it global, like that photo of the American Red Cross Hospital in France, decorated for July 4th, 1918.
During World War I, wow, bringing that piece of home, that symbol of identity, right into the war zone.
It shows how deeply significant it was, even far from home. And then you have images like the 1939 celebration on St. Helena Island, South Carolina, echoing some of Dr. Lazen's themes, showing those deeply rooted, distinct community traditions persisting.
And bringing it up to date, you have things like the huge Denver fireworks in 2016, cities themselves becoming the backdrop.
Right. So visually, it goes from intimate community moments to these monumental national displays. It reflects technological change, sure, but also maybe a shift in national scale and ambition, from a collection of towns to a global power.
The celebrations mirror the nation's growth, in a way.
I think they do. Which brings us back to the big picture, this whole journey of Independence Day. It's kind of the American experience in miniature, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, it starts as this radical political act, the Declaration, a bold assertion of self-determination.
Right, the founding moment.
Then it evolves, becomes a federal holiday, yes, but along the way it absorbs all these different meanings, regional flavors, social commentaries, even deep contradictions.
Like the Banneker Institute using it for protest.
Exactly. From that spontaneous Philly gathering in '77 to the big organized parades, the fireworks, the varied local traditions we talked about, its meaning has just constantly expanded and shifted, been reinterpreted again and again.
And the Declaration itself, those words have kind of stayed the course.
They've been the touchstone. That assertion of equality, those revolutionary ideals, they're always there to refer back to, even when reality fell brutally short. The Banneker Institute's protest proves the Declaration's enduring power as an aspiration, a promise, even amidst hypocrisy.
So the Fourth isn't just about looking back at 1776.
Not at all. It's a living tradition. It reflects and shapes the American story. It absorbs new meanings, challenges old ones, adapts. It's like a mirror, or maybe a barometer, showing our ideals and our struggles over time.
It reminds us history isn't just fixed in the past. It's something we keep engaging with, reinterpreting.
Constantly. Which makes you think about today, doesn't it? How is the holiday evolving now? What does it mean to you right now in our current context?
That's the question, isn't it? So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've really traced quite an arc.
From a declaration to a barbecue, almost.
Huh. Yeah, from that critical, brave act of declaring independence through spontaneous celebrations, its use as a platform for protest, and finally becoming this huge, varied, sometimes rowdy national holiday.
A mix of the solemn and the silly, almost.
Definitely. That blend of high ideals and messy human reality, serious politics, and just plain fun, regional quirks making up this complex national whole.
It holds both the dream and the struggle to achieve it.
So Independence Day isn't simple. It's deeply layered. It reflects where we've been, where we are, and maybe where we still hope to go as a nation.
Which leads to a final thought, perhaps, for you listening. Knowing how adaptable, how contested the meaning of the Fourth has been throughout American history.
From declaration to protest to spectacle.
Right. What parts of that long, complicated past do you think are most vital for us to remember and understand when we celebrate today? And looking ahead, what new meanings might this constantly evolving holiday take on in the future?